Hello, everyone. This is Shauna, the tax goddess. I am so excited. You have no idea how excited I am. So excited to be here today with the lovely Miss Rochelle Poulton of Xfirm. Rochelle is one of the specialists in debt reduction, and that doesn't sound like a super sexy topic, but it absolutely is. Xfirm handles very large debts, so typically 100,000 plus. And sorry, guys, it looks like there's a little bit of technical difficulties. Rochelle will be back here in a minute. So Rochelle's firm, Xfirm, handles very large debts, so typically 100,000 or higher in the debt range, so 100,000 or higher. She does work specifically with business owners. So, often we're going to see American Express cards of 500,000 plus. We're going to see some crazy, and I'm going to call them weird debts. Often it's not credit cards, it's other kinds of debts, other kind of business things. But Rochelle, hopefully, can you hear us now? Can you look
Yes.
Good. I swear the technology is getting COVID just like everybody else these days. So, happy that you're back with us. So, Rochelle, tell us a little bit about Xfirm.
Thank you. Sean is awesome. So thanks for having me on this awesome webinar. But my name is Rochelle Poulton with Xfirm, and we do a lot of consumer rights work. So I represent people and businesses with what I call financial transaction planning. And so I specifically help people reach a goal. So sometimes that's buying a house or a portfolio of real estate, or buying a business, selling a business, some financially goal-oriented task. And usually it's with someone that's got some financial hiccups. So, before you can do those things, maybe you need to clear out $1 million, 100,000 in debt. It happens. It happens to us all, especially this year, for people who were trucking along and doing awesome, on pace for massive success, then a pandemic hits. It may have changed the financial projections. I think a lot of people couldn't do goal planning for about 90 days there. Not really sure how to move forward. So what my firm does is we help specifically with debt resolution strategies, debt collection, litigation lawsuits, timeshare, student loans, and a fun world of second mortgage lien releases. So if you've got real estate complicated problems, that's what I do too.
Love it. Well, so guys, if you can't tell, Rochelle is the expert, absolutely the expert. Every time the Tax Goddess group has a question about this kind of debt or that, can we do something? Like you heard her mention student loans, that's huge. Doctors, oh my God, the amount of student loans. Okay, there are things that can be done. But today, there's so much going on. Today's election day. Rochelle, can you, I can't even. Today's election day. Now, I'm not so sure we're actually going to know who our president is, which is a whole different issue. But hopefully we do soon. What are some of the major things that are coming up in this time period? Are there any concerns with if Trump's in or if Biden's in? Does that really have an impact on what you do for people?
It'll change when it comes down to the tax consequences. Dealing with the tax side of debt, it's definitely going to matter how you plan debt settlement, especially when you're dealing with these big numbers. So if you want to settle significant debt this year, it's already November, you've got 60 days, right? So if you have $1 million in debt and you're settling for 200 grand, that's a $300,000 1099-C liability. But, it depends too on where you're taking the money from. So if you're doing a retirement loan, the tax consequences of that may be more advantageous this year than they will be next year. So it just sort of depends on everyone's unique situation, but they're definitely, it needs to be considered, because normally I won't let someone incur that significant of a tax liability in the same year. I'll try to spread it out. So you only have 2 months to plan for a $300,000 1099-C. That's no. I'm not going to do that. But for some people, it might make sense to do it this year, especially if you're insolvent this year because your business took a nosedive or your personal finances took a nosedive. Then you're not going to have any liability because, there's an insolvency exception to 1099-Cs. So yes, the presidency does matter from a tax perspective, but, whatever.
It is going to be what it is going to be. You always take the position I do. Once I know the laws, then we'll talk, right? And there we go.
Yes.
So you threw out a ton of hyper detailed language, which, you and I know because we're in this all day long. But let's back up a second here. Let's give some basics. So, okay, first things first. You mentioned 1099-C. So what's that, Rochelle?
A 1099-C is a cancellation of debt, and they're issued anytime that you resolve a debt and the company forgives more than $600. So easy math. You have $1,000 credit card that you defaulted on, and they offer to settle for $300. That's a screaming deal. Take that all day. You're probably not going to see anything that good. Well, now you've saved $700. So the company is required to issue what's called a 1099-C, and you'll get one and you'll have to pay income tax on that liability. There are, of course, exceptions to 1099-C liability, and Shauna's more of an expert on that than I am. So, you just have to plan for that when you have significant debt. Most of my clients, they have less than 25,000, less than 50 grand. So it's not so much of a concern. But when we're dealing with big ticket items, it's definitely a conversation that has to be had.
Well, and so let's take even a 20,000 or a 50,000 or bigger tickets, the 100,000, right? So let's take $100,000 in debt. Okay, we'll make that a nice, easy number. You had said if you get 30% as the payoff, that's a screaming deal. So we'll use our screaming deal example. Okay, so you have $100,000 worth of debt. You have a $300,000, you're going to pay $300,000 on that debt. And so that cash is gone to the company, all right, to whoever it is you're paying. You're going to get this 1099 for $700,000. Now, yes, there are exclusions. Okay, definitely talk to your CPA, to your tax strategist, to whoever, because there are exclusions. And I'll be honest with you, as a CPA, I've seen probably 7 out of 10 cases where the CPA that's preparing your normal tax return does not know that there's exclusions, and they make you pay tax on, in this case, $700,000. Okay, if you have a taxation bill, taxable income of $700,000, you are in the highest tax bracket, okay? You are in a minimum under the Trump administration, the 37% at the federal level plus your state level. So heaven forbid you're in California or New York, right? You're paying 47 or 50%. So let's go with the worst case 50% tax on $700,000. You thought you were getting away with a deal, right? Because you paid $300,000 in cash on this $1 million debt. You kind of forgot that the IRS also has the $1 million. And so now you will pay the IRS and your state government another $350,000. So still an okay deal. You didn't pay $1 million, right? You're still paying the $300,000 that you paid the company, $350,000 to the government, but now it's $650,000 out of $1 million. And if you weren't prepared for that extra $350,000, you better bet that your state is going to come knocking. The IRS will come knocking. They're going to talk to you, and you do not mess around with the IRS. This is not. We don't play games with the IRS.
No, they will get their money.
Because I've always thought the IRS is effectively the mafia. Oh, let me meet my little friend here, okay? They're just doing their jobs. We love the IRS. They're doing the jobs, okay? But guys, this is why it takes planning, and this is why a tax goddess is talking to a debt goddess, okay? Because this stuff has to be done together. There has to be a plan done together. So, Rochelle, one of the big things that came out of the CARES Act, which came from COVID, right? This is, the CARES Act was put into place basically March 10th, March 15th, when Trump said, that's it, the US, we're going into lockdown, right? This is the CARES Act. This is what we're going to do to help the people. And for any of you listeners out there, some of the more common things, right? Which was there were PPP loans, right? Paycheck Protection Program loans for businesses to help keep people employed. There were EIDL funds, emergency loan funds to help keep your business afloat. But there's this little tiny tweak in the law, okay, which is really super cool. Can you guess what I'm talking about? So we are talking about there's a $100,000 per person. Okay, so if you're married, this can go up to $200,000. Okay, that you can either one way or the other You can borrow the money from your retirement account, which means that you'll have a loan. You might have to pay it back. Okay. Not might, you'll have to pay it back if it's a loan. Or you can draw the money, completely take the money out of your retirement account. And that money, once you have the money, whether it's a loan or you drew it out, can be used for any purpose, no restrictions. Well, not illegal stuff. Nobody's starting drug rings, okay? Legal purpose, you can use that money. So, Rochelle, from your perspective, I mean, this gives people massive access to cash that they never had before. What would you recommend? So here I am, I'm a client. I've got $500,000 worth of debt. I'm married, so I have $200,000 and I might be able to access. Talk to me. What do we do here?
So, the first step is figuring out, does it even make sense to resolve your debt now? Right? Like, just because you are thinking about it, maybe you don't need to. If you're in a 0 interest loan, why are you settling debt? Like, it's already free money. Like, just continue with your life as normal. But for a lot of people, it's because they're concerned that they're not going to be able to continue to afford sustaining that type of debt. Income has been reduced. You're planning on selling, something's come up that's facilitated the need to resolve this kind of debt. So the first thing I'm going to look at is determining whether or not a strategic debt settlement solution makes sense. And that has a lot to do with where you are in the debt cycle. A typical debt cycle is you open an account, you make payment on it, and you pay it off. That's a normal debt cycle. But for some people, you made a left at Albuquerque when you should have made a right. And, that involves being in default. Like, you've missed a couple of payments, you're maybe dealing with a default interest rate, you're paying 30% or a daily accruing interest rate, something nuts is happening. That happens. So, now it's time to take a look at, where are you at in the debt cycle, and are you eligible to receive a settlement offer? Right now, a lot of people are wondering if they can settle because they're current on their accounts. And the truth is, maybe. Typically companies will not settle with you when you're current, but because there's a freaking pandemic happening and a lot of people have been applying for hardship and getting, a month relief, reduced interest rate, that kind of thing, some companies are willing to take a settlement. They're not taking 30%. They are taking, somewhere between 40 and 60%, which is a screaming deal. You're still safe. You're still not paying everything, and you're still not paying all that interest that would be otherwise accruing. So if they're doing that, maybe it makes sense to engage in that kind of a negotiation. But for some people, they're not settling at all. They want 80 or 90%. They want it in a lump sum, and they want it yesterday, and that makes it a lot more difficult to, do that assessment. So it's really important to kind of evaluate the debt and whether or not a strategic debt solution makes sense. If you are going to do debt settlement, you have to remember interest still accrues on those bad boys. So it may start out, as like $400,000, but because of the interest after 6 months, it might be like 420, 450, a significant amount more. So you just kind of have to keep that in mind when you're getting to do this plan. Plus, there's the impact to your credit when you go into default. Like, if you had perfect credit and you miss a payment on a personal debt, it's going to drop you probably 100 to 200 points. If it's a business debt, it's not on your personal credit report, but some companies do report defaulted business debt to your personal credit. And, that'll ding you quite a bit as well.
So, fire hose of knowledge. This one.
Yeah, sorry.
I love it. Okay, but I've got a question. So, all right. So you were saying that some debts, sure, great, we'll give you 40%. Some will go to 60%. Some are like, good luck, pay us 100 plus the interest, right? We don't care. So how do you know? Like, okay, let's say I've got 10 debts, right? I, as a consumer, I wouldn't know which ones are which, and so that's question one, right? And question two is, let's say you do have, out of 10, you've got 2 that are 100% payment plus interest plus penalties plus all this other stuff. Can I just do the 8 that are going to settle, or if we're going to do it, we got to do it all? Like, how does that work?
You got to pick and choose and be strategic. I wouldn't, as an individual, just go out there and try to settle. You need someone who has experience doing this. That's why we offer a free consult. Like, we can tell you, like, hey, this company is going to screw you over. You're better off just maintaining your current payments to them, but let's take a look at these other accounts. It does make sense to do that. And for some people, it makes a lot of sense to just pay everything off in full with this retirement loan. And why? Because your interest rate on the retirement loan repayment and the payment terms of that are going to be significantly less than what you're paying now in interest on whatever types of loans you've got. And so you may not even need someone like me to help resolve it. You just need a plan for reallocating assets and paying stuff off. It just makes different sense for everybody. Everyone's situation is a little bit unique. You can't give general advice because no one is general. Everyone has got something crazy going on in their life right now.
Yay for COVID. Okay. And so, one of the major benefits from my perspective is that, you're talking about the loan, the interest rate's lower. You're also paying yourself.
Yes.
Instead of paying a bank. To me, that's huge because if you take a retirement loan or if you just take the money out as a full-on draw, okay, and you're properly taking it out of the account, either way, right, would you rather pay a bank or a creditor or whoever 25, 30, 35, whatever that percentage is, or would you rather pay yourself 3%, right? These super, super duper low interest. And, right now as we speak, the current AFR, which stands for the applicable federal rate with the IRS, in a midterm loan, let's say a 5-year loan, you're looking at 0.67%. 0.67. So that's really free. The money, it's free. Right? Yeah, the money that you're taking from yourself is effectively free. So there's some really massive positive benefits there. Now, okay, so of course you're going the loan route on this $100,000 per person. That could, depending on what debts you have, I love the way you phrased it, basically making an asset allocation schedule to figure out where should you allocate these assets, right? What is the best way to figure out how to allocate these assets? What other things have we not brought up that is an important consideration? Psychological factors. You mentioned the credit factor. What are some of these other things that are going to happen that people need to know about before they jump into something?
Well, this is a nerve-wracking experience. Financial stress is real. People lose sleep over it. People get into fights over it. Everyone has their it's real. And you have to kind of, be willing and open to any and all solutions to resolve it. And I think that's probably the biggest key to success is talking to your significant other about the stress and about your uncertainty and, feeling like you're both on the same page with a game plan moving forward because it involves both of your lives. Like you both need to be on the same page with making these types of really big financial decisions. And they have to make mathematical sense. Like if you don't understand what's going on, then you probably shouldn't do it, or you should ask a ton more questions. I'm happy to answer all of them. But usually I think the biggest asset to consider is real estate. Mortgage loans are super cheap right now too. So people have a lot of equity in their homes, and sometimes it makes sense to take out a home equity line of credit to resolve debt. Now, if you're already in default and your credit's not that great, that's not an option. Like if your credit's bad, you just can't refinance. But if you're still current and you need to consolidate some things and get rid of some debt, you're still looking at, 4% interest. So taking a look at a home equity line of credit is also really important. For people who were unexpectedly retired in their 60s, we're seeing a lot of that. Those are high paying jobs, and it's really hard to get back into the marketplace when you're at the top of your career, making a solid mid 6 figures. You may not ever see that again, especially in this economy. And so planning for the long term, maybe it's time to downsize, sell your home. You've got tons of equity in it, hopefully, and then maybe purchase with reverse mortgage. So now you don't have a mortgage payment and you can use your home equity to resolve all of your debt. So you're paying off debt, having no debt, really moving forward. That's another specific strategy that I employ for some people because it makes sense. That also doesn't involve, hiring a professional. That's getting advice. That's like strategic planning. Yep. Asset reallocation. Sometimes you just need a practical solution to solve these types of problems. So especially when they don't incur tax liability.
And, generally loans are not going to create a tax liability, because a loan means that you have to pay somebody back, so it's not taxable income. So it's a huge positive here. I mean, this goes back to the $100,000, right? If you loan it, there's no tax liability on them, and there's no penalty. Side note, for anybody who doesn't know this, but if you're under 59 and a half, normally there'd be a penalty for actually taking money out of your account. With the CARES Act, that penalty does not exist at this point. Okay, so it'll come back maybe at some point, but for right now it doesn't. But yeah, if you actually take the money out, it is taxable income, so that needs to go into the strategic planning too. There are some benefits to this CARES Act. Instead of taking the full 100,000 as income, you can spread it across 3 years. So there's some cool planning there. But where my brain is going, Rochelle, is actually back to one of the very first things you said, which was, listen, COVID happened. Let's say your business was in the travel industry or the restaurant industry or retail. Okay, your business is used to paying you profits coming home to you 400,000. Okay, you've made 20 grand. Yay for COVID, right? You've lost money, you've been bleeding money, you've been trying to keep your staff afloat, right? Even with the PPP loans, and there's taxation on the PPP loans. I mean, there's serious, significant problems that are coming down the road. We've really literally kind of been kicking the can a little bit. Yeah. But if your income is way, 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 way down, maybe you want to pay tax now. And in 2020, right? If you can, we'll have to talk about settlement lengths of time here in a second. But if you can, you might want to take it in 2020. And hopefully, when we find out our president, we will know whether we have the nice low rates or much higher tax rates here. So you might definitely want that reported income. If you can't exclude it in any other way, you want that reported income now. So as you said, Rochelle, we have less than 60 days left to this year. If somebody were to even start with you right now, can you even settle that fast?
It depends on where they are in the debt cycle. Like if you're already in default, yes. If you're current on everything, no. I would love to say yes, but realistically, probably not. These things require negotiation. You need settlement agreements, and it's not like law firms are really moving that fast. Sometimes it takes 30 days just to get a settlement agreement in writing. So, it just depends on where you are in the debt cycle and realistically what you're trying to accomplish. But for most business owners, where you're taking that huge hit in your income, especially when it's like 80% or more, and you're looking at substantial financial liability. We're talking leases on commercial space. There's no duty to mitigate. Like you're on the hook for that whole sucker, the whole lease term. And, if you've got substantial credit card debt, lines of credit, SBA loans, student loans, all of it, when you combine it all and it's kind of a crippling number, and your income has been reduced, well, then we're going to look at bankruptcy. We're just going to take a look and see if you qualify for a Chapter 7 consumer or non-consumer bankruptcy. Why struggle financially when you can just get a clean slate, start fresh, and hit 2021 hard?
And there we go. Go make that money and earn it back. I love it. So that's actually really, really good to know here, guys, is that, really, Rochelle, what you're telling us is that there's a massive spectrum of things to consider, right? Because there's all the way at the bottom, which is, listen, you really don't need a specialist. You don't need, even though we all want Rochelle, you don't need Rochelle, right? Because it's a little tweak here, a little tweak here, ask a couple questions, have at it, go get your house refinanced, everything's okay, you can deal with it. All the way up to bankruptcy. Man, that's your choice. Let's get it done. Let's wipe the slate clean, all the way up and through that. So really having an expert, at least speaking to the expert to figure out which path should you go. I loved your phrasing. You were talking about, this is crippling, and talking about the psychological aspects. Financial stress is real, and it is massive, and it can be literally crippling. You can't work, you can't think, you can't sleep, you can't eat, you can't go for a walk without thinking that there's somebody over your shoulder from the credit card company that's going to come get you out of the bushes. Okay, I mean, it can be very, very scary and stressful. So what are the next steps here, Rochelle? We talked about so much today. What are the next steps? What do people need to be? I mean, we talked about a lot of considerations. What are the words of wisdoms from the fabulous Rochelle?
Well, I can't call myself an expert because I don't have a specific designation in this area of law.
I am has deemed expert. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I would say, it's really about being honest with yourself and not being afraid to look the truth in the face. It's really hard to take a look at your financial standing. It's kind of a scary thing, especially when things have been going really well. So the first thing I would recommend is taking a look at your credit report. That doesn't lie. It tells you everything that's on there. It tells you your score. And that's the first key to being able to assess what your options are. I mean, if you've got stellar credit, you've got options. If you have, 580 and below, there's totally room for improvement on the credit score side, but you don't have loan options. Refinances are out. Those kinds of things are just not really available to you. And you want to avoid hard money loans. When push comes to shove, sometimes it's like, well, I'm just going to take out, a high interest loan, 400%. Solving your problem. Yeah. Short-term loans, where you're taking out 35 grand and you have to pay back 70. Not smart. Don't do that.
Now. Oh my, okay.
Those things exist. And, when people get really stressed and you're desperate to like make a payment on something, it can be scary, and people can make some not so great decisions. So, when it comes down to, well, what do I pay? I'm not in a position to pay anybody right now. What are my priorities? And it's like, well, you should preserve your credit, right? Like you need utilities. So you have to pay that, and that's not on your credit, but you need a place to live, right? You need your car. So everything else is kind of optional. And then consult with someone like me to figure out what are all of your options. What is the best way to move forward? And, for a lot of people, businesses are starting to rebound. So sometimes you're just going to be in a weird holding pattern for like 90 days. Are things going to improve in the first quarter of next year? What is your peak business season? Like, we're coming into the travel season right now. Are people going to travel? We don't know. Right. We don't know. Some people will. Like, I like being in my house, so I'm probably not. I know. So I don't really know. So it's hard to say like how industries are going to hold up over the next few months. But if you're still in there and your business is still doing well and you're starting to see some increases in revenue, well, you may just need to wait it out and see how you're doing at the beginning of the year. So unfortunately, I can't give any specific advice because there's so many different scenarios. Everyone's in their own bucket.
For sure. Well, and what I really took out of that, right? One, there are scarier things that I didn't even know about. And as a goddess, not knowing, okay, now I'm even more terrified. Experts who don't call themselves experts, but are absolutely experts. And two, make sure that you talk to your team, okay? Because listen, if you have a tax strategist, great. If you have a debt strategist expert, okay, fantastic. If you don't, talk to your CPA, talk to your banker, okay? Reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you, okay? We enjoy educating and we enjoy helping people. Otherwise, Rochelle and I would not be doing what we do. We would be here spending 28 minutes and 36 seconds of our time telling you about all the options that exist in the world, guys, right? It is our job and our passion to be able to help people. So please, I know that it's scary. If you're in this position, I know that it's scary. Don't be scared, okay? You have two goddesses here to stand behind you and help you come up with options and help you come up with a plan. And that's huge. You're not alone, okay? And please, the other people, don't be embarrassed. Honey, whoever's listening, I feel like I'm talking directly to you. Whoever's there listening, okay, do not be embarrassed. Rochelle and I have heard everything. There will be somebody out there that is worse than you. So don't worry about it. Don't be embarrassed. We have heard every story, every situation. There is no judgment in this zone.
Judgment-free zone. Life happens to everybody. Yep. And death happens. So let us help.
Yay. Well, Rochelle, you have been so sweet to give so much of your time today. Is there anything else that people need to know before you're off for today. Your contact information would be fabulous. How do people find you?
You can find me online at xfirmlaw.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. It's Rochelle Poulton, Poulton, or you can call my office at 480-305-0603.
Awesome. Okay, and if you guys haven't already picked up the phone, you better do so quickly, because when everybody else sees this video, they're going to beat you to talking to Rochelle. And you want to get in with her fast. We only have less than 60 days left, so go call Rochelle. Thank you so much for being here with us. As usual, you are a joy and smarter than a whip. And thank goodness for people exactly like you in our world. So thank you.
Thank you. And of course, Shauna and I work hand in hand on dealing with these tax issues. So if you've got last minute questions, call her.
I was going to say, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of questions after we know our president tomorrow. So yeah, feel free. We've got extra operators on hand. Telephone calls. So thank you, Rochelle. Y'all have a great day. And if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to post them down below. Subscribe, of course, to the YouTube channel. Join the Facebook group. Rochelle is in our Facebook group, Tax Strategies That Save Entrepreneurs Thousands, and in this case, hundreds of thousands of interest. But anyway, so you can find both of us in multiple locations, and it's been our pleasure to bring you the knowledge today. So have a great day, everyone. We'll talk to you later. Bye.